Good morning. Um, Yesterday, I read from Halakhic Man, the fourth footnote, and this is a text by Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, someone whose work I really don't know. I was reading the one of the many prefaces to the edition that I borrowed from Muse, and it seemed like this was not originally published as a um, it wasn't originally published as an academic text, and so it wasn't treated in that literature, and so it was, I guess, relatively unknown until the translator, whose name I do not see prominently, until the translator translated it. So it's a relatively obscure text, but I don't want to say it's obscure. It was relatively obscure. Now I think it's more well known. So I don't know very much about the history of the text or anything like that, but it was on my desk again this morning, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking, well, maybe yesterday I didn't really fully sort of capture it because I did skip a few pages, and then I thought, well, as I was kind of rereading it, I was kind of like, well, actually, this could perhaps capture something really important that I haven't really thought about before. Something that's maybe prominent in TLC, and maybe that's why folks around here have read it. And so I was thinking I might read it again, and I was just also thinking, oh, there was something else. There's something else. This word that is in the text that I didn't understand. Antinomic, and I had thought that meant more free form. Actually, that means, I think it could mean in this context like paradoxical, or there's an internal contradiction. And so this is the kind of text actually that I think is, it kind of models what I think that we should read in layers and in circles. I think that we should read layers of different types of content, and then we should return to that content. And this text, the way it's written as a footnote, and I haven't read the text that it's referring to, so there's a lot we don't know, but it models sort of this intersection of theology and history and social thought even. So I thought that I would return to it. This is footnote 4, page 139. Even though Kierkegaard disagreed with Hegel's philosophy from the beginning to end and made it the object of his fierce, stinging attacks, he nevertheless accepted from him the dialectical principle, with many significant changes, to be sure. In this concept of the dialectic, which he and Karl Barth introduced into the analysis of the unfolding of the religious consciousness, and this view concerning the antinomic structure of religious experience, so this paradoxical structure that we have in religious experience, which then Rudolf Otto, which was revised and refined by Rudolf Otto in his book, The Idea of Holy, give the lie to the position that is prevalent nowadays in religious circles, whether Protestant groups or in American Reform or conservative Judaism, that the religious experience is of a very simple nature. So he's giving us a lineage of philosophy and saying, well, that makes us think that we can have this experience of the numinous, and it's actually very simple. And he goes on to explain a religious experience of a very simple nature that is devoid of the spiritual tortuousness present in the secular cultural consciousness, psychic upheavals, and of the pangs and torments that are inextricably connected with the development and refinement of man's spiritual personality. Okay, so this seems right at sort of the Jordan Peterson zone, talking about this psychic upheavals, pangs, and torments that are inextricably connected with the development and refinement of man's spiritual personality. This popular ideology, and he's talking about this religious experience, this popular ideology contends that the religious experience is tranquil and neatly ordered, tender and delicate. It is an enchanted stream for embittered souls and still water for troubled spirits. The person, and this is a quotation from Genesis 25:29, the person who comes in from the fields weary, and then when we're quoting from the battlefields and campaigns of life, from the secular domain, which is filled with doubts and fears, contradictions and refutations, clings to religion as does a baby to its mother, and finds in her lap, quote, a shelter for his head, the nest for his forsaken prayers. That is from, that translation's in Hebrew, it's not translated. It's from a work that's not translated. And there's comforted for his disappointments and tribulations. Okay, so with all of these interruptions, it's hard to know what the author's really saying. The person who comes in from the field weary, from the battlefields and campaigns of life, from the secular domains, which is filled with doubts and fears, contradictions and refutations, clings to religion, as does a baby to its mother, and there is comforted for his disappointments and tribulations. So religion is an escape from daily life in his painting of sort of 20th century theology and philosophy. He says this ideology is partially embedded in the most ancient strata of Christianity, partially rooted in modern pragmatic philosophy, but mainly it stems from practical utilitarian considerations. The advocates of religion wish to exploit the rebellious impulse against knowledge which surges from time to time in the soul of the man of culture, the yearning to be freed from the bonds of culture, that daughter of knowledge which weighs heavy on man with turbulence of life to a magical, still, and quiet island, and there to devote oneself to the ideal of naturalness and vitality. This Rousseauian ideology left its stamp on the entire Romantic movement from the beginning of its growth until its final tragic manifestations in the consciousness of contemporary man. Therefore, the representatives of religious communities are inclined to portray religion in a wealth of colors that dazzle the eye as a poetic Arcadia, a realm of simplicity, wholeness, and tranquility. Most of the sermons of revivalists are divided in equal measure between depicting the terrors of hellfire and describing the utopian tranquility that religion can bestow upon man. And that which appears in the sermon of these preachers is in a primitive, garbled form, at times interwoven with a childish naivety and superficial belief, is refined and purified in the furnace of popular philosophy and theology, and becomes transformed into a universal religious ideology which proclaims, if you wish to acquire tranquility without paying the price of spiritual agonies, turn unto religion. If you wish to achieve a fine psychic equilibrium without having to first undergo a slow, gradual personal development, turn unto religion. And if you wish to achieve an instant spiritual wholeness and simplicity that need not be forged out of the struggles and torments of consciousness, turn unto religion. Get thee out of thy country, which is filled with anguish, anxiety, anguish, and tension, and go from thy birthplace, which is so fringed, raging, and stormy, to the land that is enveloped by the stillness of peace and tranquility, to the Arcadia wherein religion reigns supreme. The leap from the secular world to the religious world could not be simpler and easier. There is no need for a process of transition with all its torments and upheavals. The person can acquire spiritual tranquility in a single moment. Typical of this attitude is the Christian Science movement. So most of this is an angry rant, but we'll keep reading. It would appear to me that there is no need to explain the self-evidently falsity of this ideology. First, the entire romantic aspiration to escape from the domain of knowledge, rebellions against the authority of objective scientific cognition, which has found its expression in the biologic philosophies of Bergen, Nietzsche, Spengler, Klotz, and their followers in the phenomenological, existential, and anti-scientific school of Heidegger and his coterie, I don't know how you say that word, and from the midst of which there arise in various forms the sanctification of vitality and intuition, the veneration of instinct, the desire for power, the glorification of the emotional affective life, and the flowing, surging stream of subjectivity, the lavishing of extravagant praise, and the Faustian type, and the Dionysian personality, etc., etc., have brought complete chaos. There's a Jordan Petersonism. Have brought complete chaos and human depravity to the world. And let the events of the present era be proof. The individual who frees himself from the rational principle and who casts off the yoke of objective thought will, in the end, turn destructive and lay waste the entire created order. Therefore, it is preferable that religion should ally itself with the forces of clear, logical cognition, as uniquely exemplified in the scientific method, even though at times the two might clash with one another, rather than pledge its troth to be clouded, mysterious ideologies that grope in the dark corners of existence, unaided by the shining light of objective knowledge, and believe that they have penetrated to the secret core of the world. Well, that is interesting that he's looking for this kind of empirical religion, but he did at the top talk about contradictions, so we'll keep reading. And second, this ideology is intrinsically false and deceptive. Is that referring to... Okay, so he starts off saying it's false, but he's talking about the stuff of the 20th century, the numinous religious experience stuff. Okay, so continuing on, this ideology is intrinsically false and deceptive. That religious consciousness and man's experience, which is most profound and most elevated, which penetrates to the very depths and ascends to the very heights, is not that simple and comfortable. On the contrary, it is exceptionally complex, rigorous, and tortuous. Where you find its complexity, there you find its greatness. The religious experience, from the beginning to end, is antinomic and antithetic. The consciousness, homo religious, flings bitter accusations against itself and immediately is filled with regret, judges its desires and yearnings with excessive severity, and at the same time steeps itself in them, casts derogatory aspersions on its own attributes, flails away at them, but also subjugates itself to them. It is in a condition of spiritual crisis, of psychic ascent and descent, of contradiction arising from affirmation and negation, self-abnegation and self-appreciation, the ideas of temporality and eternity, knowledge and choice, necessity and freedom, love and fear, the yearning for God and the flight from his glorious splendor, incredible, overbold, daring, and an extreme sense of humility, transcendence in God's closeness, the profane and the holy, etc., etc., struggle within his religious consciousness, wrestle and grasp with each other. So this guy's got a lot of time on his hands, and okay, this one ascends, and this descends, this falls, and this rises. So he's pointing out all of these sort of ebbing and flowing of the religious experience as he sees it, marked by crisis, marked by these difficult whatever. Religion is not, at the outset, a refuge of grace and mercy for the despondent and desperate, an enchanted stream of crushed spirits, but a raging, clamorous torrent of man's consciousness with all its crises, pangs, and torment. Yes, it is true that during the third Sabbath meal at dusk, this is the part I skipped yesterday, the last 2 pages, so I'm going to keep reading because no stone unturned. Yes, it is true that during the third Sabbath meal at dusk, as the day of rest declines, and man's soul yearns for its creator and is afraid to depart from that realm of holiness whose name is Sabbath, into the dark and frightening secular workaday week, we sing the psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters." That's the 23rd Psalm, etc., etc. And we believe with our entire hearts in the words of the psalmist. However, this psalm only describes the ultimate destination of homo religious, not the path leading to that destination. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of John Vervaeke in this. For the path, for example, with the metaphor of the path and with this religio stuff. For the path eventually will lead to the green pastures and to the still waters. is not the royal road, but a narrow, twisting footway that threads its course along the steep mountain slope as the terrible abyss yawns at the traveler's feet. Many see, quote, the Lord passing by, and a great and strong wind, rending mountains and shattering rocks. And after the wind, an earthquake, and after the earthquake, a fire. But only a few prove worthy of hearing the still small voice. Out of the strains have I called, O Lord. Out of the depths I have called unto thee, O Lord. Out of the straits of inner oppositions and incongruities, spiritual doubts and uncertainties. Out of the depths of psyche, rent with antinomies and contradictions, out of the bottomless pit of a soul that struggles with his own torments, I have called unto thee, O Lord. And when the Torah testified that Israel in the end would repent out of anguish and agony in the distress, when all these things are come upon you and you will return unto the Lord your God, it had in mind not only physical pain, but also spiritual suffering. The pangs of searching and groping, the tortures of spiritual crises, and exhausting treks of the soul purify and sanctify man, cleanse his thought, and purge them of the husks, the superficiality, and the dross of vulgarity. Out of these torments there emerges a new understanding of the world, a powerful spiritual enthusiasm that shakes the very foundation of man's existence. He rises from the agonies, purged and refined, possessed of a pure heart and new spirit. It is a time of agony unto Jacob, but out of it he shall be saved. That is, from out of the very midst of the spiritual stature, from out of the very midst of the agony itself, he will attain eternal salvation and redemption. The spiritual stature and countenance of the man of God are chiseled and formed by the pangs of redemption themselves. Okay, so I was reading this. We've reached the end of footnote 4. I have treated footnote 4 of this text. Halakhic Man. I see Branch and Ron Cofferman and Tunji are here. Hello. It's nice to see you all. So this is kind of wild. So I was just saying that I was returning to this text because, well, I had treated it kind of casually yesterday, and it was kind of I had treated it kind of casually yesterday, and it was on my desk again, and I was looking at it, and I thought, well, maybe this explains what's going on in this little corner of the internet, that people are moving from this type of religious experience, this experiential religion, where everything's kind of like, you know, it's sort of species like a bosom for people to cry on or whatever, to this into, oh no, the word, it was lab. I don't know. The text is a little bit there's a lot going on. But okay, so moving from this sort of thing to this deeper, more paradoxical whatever. Say it woo. That's a wrong Coppermanism. So yeah. Does anyone have thoughts on this? Should I drop the link? I think that's only fair because I've talked for a long time, and I'm back on StreamYard today, so I'm gonna go ahead and find the link thing. I obviously know how this works. Okay, here's the link. I got it. Okay. I suppose you didn't need a play-by-play, but that is what I'm doing. I'm giving you a play-by-play right here. Link dropped. Otherwise, I'll keep talking about this text and how I see it in TLC. And I guess I haven't really given that much thought. So this is me thinking out loud. Okay, Ron is asking for an interpretation. Well, I'm not a theologian, and I don't understand it all, but we could go back to the top, and it's not on this screen. It's on a different screen, so I can't just share it. But what I see I'm critiquing, I see a strong, angry critique at really, maybe even attributing this back to Rudolf Otto, who wrote the book The Idea of Holy, The Idea of the Holy, which is on my shelf somewhere. We could get that out. That is a read, and especially if people are reading Iliada, um, that is a read. He's saying that gives the lie to the position that is prevalent nowadays in religious circles, and he's tracing this back to Hegel, who has this idea of the dialectic. So one thing feeds the other, and he's saying that, well, Kierkegaard disagreed. Kierkegaard, the existentialist philosopher guy, he disagreed with Hegel, but actually, he went along with this dialectic. And then he's saying that Karl Barth introduced dialectic into the unfolding of the religious consciousness. And so that's a text we could go back to. We could go back to Barth and Otto and kind of look at that, how that developed theologically, what that means theologically. But he's pointing at the social. Tunji, if you're really curious, you could read footnote 4 of Halakhic Man and really be on the same page. I don't know. I think it's a complicated read. But if we wanted to trace, I'm not familiar with the author either. It's this rabbinic text. Actually, it's not. It's the author's a rabbi. I haven't read the text at all. I've only read footnote 4 because someone recommended footnote 4 to me. And so I've been reading it, and I'm sort of also sort of offering an interpretation where he's sort of pointing at the shallow modern Christianity that developed in the second half of the 20th century in response to this idea that religion could be this experiential thing where we could just experience this spiritual whatever. And he's saying in this footnote, which goes on for several pages, well, actually, we need this sort of intense spiritual transformation. We can't just have these spiritual experiences. We have to have these transformative, hard, difficult, painful experiences to shape a kind of, he doesn't really say what the outcome is, actually. He just says that, well, we can't have this shallow thing, this only experiential thing. Actually, we have to, religion is not a refuge of grace and mercy for the despondent and desperate, and a chanted stream for crushed spirits, but a raging, clamorous torrent of man's consciousness with all of its crises, pangs, and torments. So we can't have the spiritual whatever without also having these crises, pangs, and torments. And he's giving some scriptural references for that. He's a rabbi, so he's quoting from the Psalms. He's quoting from First Kings. He's quoting Jeremiah. And then he talks about the pangs of searching and groping, the tortures, the spiritual crises, and exhausting treks of the soul. So what he's saying is kind of reminding me both of Jordan Peterson's journey, as we've kind of seen it exemplified very prominently. Like, Jordan Peterson had this crisis, this, maybe he had his own meaning crisis or whatever, and so that seems like, and then now people are saying like, oh, Jordan Peterson, maybe he's a Christian or something, and then the way that it's talking about the path metaphor that's used here, and some of the other language used here, well, that sounds like John Vervaeke, and so I can see why people in the corner are really drawn to this. And drawn to this message about transformation, and also drawn, I don't know if y'all see yourselves in this way, drawn to this rejection of just a more purely, I don't know if the word is spiritual. He is specifically talking about Otto, though. So I think the word spiritual might be it. But he's saying that that's used wrong. So really a critique of experiential religion, of just sort of having these, I think, feelings. I think he's talking about spiritual feelings, and then sort of thinking of that as like some sort of refuge. Yeah. So don't know how much more there is to say about this, but I'm glad that I read it because I feel like there is kind of like that puts words and that puts actually a philosophical lineage to some of the things that I've heard people say, I think, in this little corner of the internet. And that just sort of makes me think. I don't want to think about particular individuals, but we do kind of see this story emerging again and again and again. This, I don't know if we want to call it like an archetype or something where people do kind of, I think, say, well, something went wrong in my church, something went wrong, something surprised me, something offended me, and then I began to see the world differently. And I wonder if what people are saying, or part of what people are saying, maybe is, well, my religious tradition, especially this, this. I want to put his words here. This devoid of the spiritual torturousness. We can't say bad things. Bad things can't happen here. This is a fun, happy place, and we're nice to everyone. I wonder if that's part of why people who are in this little corner of the internet sort of have those surprising moments, and then they come into this, reading all this philosophy, listening to someone like Paul Vanderklay, listening to someone like Jordan Peterson, listening to John Vervaeke, and kind of saying, well, what else is out there? And so he does talk about this difference between childish naivety and superficial belief, and then being transformed into the universal religious ideology, which proclaims, if you wish to acquire tranquility without paying the price of spiritual agonies, turn into religion. So he's saying there's a price, there's a cost, there's a, and I don't know if opponent processing is the right word to use here. Opponent processing, maybe something that's at work. People feeling like they need to touch grass. People feeling like, there has to be something real, something solid to grasp onto. And so I wonder if this is something that's feeding into the more sort of practice-oriented tradition that people are sort of getting into as they're leaving evangelical Christianity, joining Orthodoxy, or joining a trad cath kind of thing, or even just, Catholicism. I wonder if, moving from a more, I was going to say low church to high church. I don't know if that has any salience here. Moving from a tradition that is God the opponent? Ron Copperman says. Oh yeah, I can highlight comments. In terms of opponent processing, I wonder, is the self the opponent there? Is the tradition? So you move from a tradition where everybody has to like each, everybody has to be nice to each other, everybody has to like each other. You can't talk about things like, well, actually, I don't believe in a 6-day creationism, because then you would be kind of being a bad person who would be sort of deviating from the main sort of vibe of the leader or whatever. And so you can't say those things. You can't have opponent processing within your congregation because you're just sort of, you're a bad person, or you're, what are some other ways that people respond to that? I guess you just don't belong there, whatever it is. And so you can't have opponent processing in your congregation. And so maybe you move to, I don't know who the opponent would be there. Maybe you move to a place where you can have other opponents. You can sort of go through the difficult experience of refining your belief system. Or, a lot of people told me, oh, I'm addicted to pornography. That might not be allowed in your previous church. And if people were to know that, maybe they would never talk to you again. But even though it's like very, very common for people to think that. But so the point is, well, you wouldn't be allowed to go through that difficult experience of overcoming whatever you're addicted to or whatever it is, because you have to be nice to everyone. I really don't understand what you're saying. They wanted to work things out. What did they want to work out? I see. I see. Um, yeah, yeah. So those are some things I'm thinking about. If no one else has anything they want to talk about, I should probably do some writing. I don't know exactly how this is going to feed into anything that I'm writing right now, other than just sort of some background understanding. I think it's important that people are reading this kind of text because it does give some kind of legitimacy to thinking about this in a sociological way, because it sort of gives evidence that, well, people are it gives evidence that people do kind of maybe see these two paths. People do kind of see this pushback. It gives evidence, I think, that what's happening now in the Orthodox Church might be part of this pushback. Ron's talking about in jail, all the inmates could say what they wanted. Oh, Ron's here himself. Ron, we're just gonna save me from having to write right now.
Anything I can do to help someone procrastinate, I'm all about.
Yes, we were procrastinating a little bit this morning. It's true.
Let me go. I'm at church, actually. And I wanted to say, I understand what you're saying about a lot of churches. They won't let you talk about controversial subjects. But at least the people I've been around, Campus Crusade for Christ, this church that I'm at, it's not forbidden to say, I don't believe exactly that.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, but then I'm around a bunch of people who don't care. Where they're not out to impress anybody. A lot of them are ex-band members, gang members, or just, just good working people who speak their mind. But in a more traditional church, let's say Catholic, and I like them. I'm not hacking on them. If you were to say, I don't believe in 6-day creation, that might go against the catechism. I think that's what they call it.
I think Catholics might be cool with Catholics have sort of a faith and reason kind of so they're going to be cool with that particular one, but talk about sex and Catholics are like
Okay. Right. Okay.
But I see what you're saying. I think I see what you're saying.
I guess it does I guess Orthodox and Catholic would be more rigid. And then Protestants probably just go all over, depends on what place you're at.
Yeah, Tunji's right here. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have nitpicked the example. It was the point was totally on. I heard what you were saying.
Tunji, you ought to get in here, bub.
I really should be writing, but of course, Tunji, I would love to say hi. Rod and Tunji on. Have you been on together?
No. We talk on Discord.
I see.
There's your guy. I'll be honest. Like Tunji, he's the assassin that you want. He's just knowledgeable. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes, he is. Okay, and here's the thing. I think Tunji has some kind of like deep scientific knowledge, right? And so sometimes I think I find myself being impressed. I'm like, here we go. I can't get through this text here, and then I bet Tunji knows what it means.
Well, and McMo, he's on here. I mean, he's no dim bulb.
Dude, everybody on here is so smart.
What?
Everybody on here is so smart.
I know, it's just, and I'm here for comic relief. I'm like, fine.
When you're here, what were you saying though? Are you part of the ministry on campus? The
I've helped. I've been a part of a couple different campus ministries. One of my buddies, he's part of Navigators, which is a large ministry. Chris McComb. So and so I've not been part of a college gig in a while, but still I was slumming it with the Catholics for a while. Good folk. They have an all day 24-hour prayer room available, and I asked to go pray in there, and they were pretty cool about letting me go in there. So for about 6 years. So
you do a lot of prayer. Every time I see you, like you're in the church, you're a praying man.
sometimes, other times I'm just being a schlep, and prayer is it's not that difficult. When you were reading the footnote, one thing that caught my ear was talking about transformation of heart.
Sure.
And for me, what prayer is simply getting quiet. It's almost a very Buddhist kind of vibe. It looks like I'm almost asleep. And just, it's getting quiet. It's more like sailing. It's not like digging a ditch. So at least that's what it is for me. See what the comments say. Now that Claire's gone, let's just raid the channel. So anyhow, yeah, I do pray a lot, but it's more like talking with a friend. It's not drudgery.
I got you. I feel like I have to explain. Sometimes my dog comes into the office and I have to
Oh yeah?
boost her up onto her little chair. I feel like, should I show you? I feel like I have to show you. I can talk about prayer some more, I guess.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know how to show the office off. Can you
Let
see?
me, oh yeah, you do. Oh, wait a second. Let me get, I want to see, let me see that. Wait, I got to turn my phone sideways because I want to see the puppy.
She's
Got to
here.
turn that.
She's here.
Hold on a second. Not yet. Here we go. Okay, let me turn my face up. Let me see the dog. Where you at, puppy?
Oh, is she not visible? Okay, I'll go right to her. I will pause this camera.
All right. This thing's reversed. How should I do this? Mess everybody up. Well, Clara. Oh, hey, dog. Hey, puppy.
She's here.
It's a beagle.
Yeah, she's a beagle. She's great.
How old is she? She's got Ancient of Days all about her.
She is sorry, that was an awkward way to hold my camera. She is 12, almost 13.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. She's got a lot of gray. I can see that.
We think she might have like Cushing's disease, and so it's kind of like
What kind of disease?
Cushing's.
Right. Now listen. What's that?
I think it's like there's a hormone that's released from the pituitary gland in the brain. And so that affects, I guess, the level of stress.
What's the name of your puppy?
She's Lucy.
Lucy. And I'm asking, and I'm not joking, and I respect you. May I pray for your dog?
Ron, you're always
No. What? No, and I don't want to, dude, I don't want to sound like a wingnut, but I don't.
Yeah, Ron, of course you can play. I don't think anybody's a wingnut here. Please. Lucy.
All right, so Lord, in the name of Jesus, for Lucy, Lord, that by the whipping you received for Claire's dog, her puppy, that you would heal this disease, that you heal this affliction, this dog. And Lord, we thank you for Lucy and length of days and health and happiness in Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, Ron. PVK apparently agrees. I don't know the Christian Reformed Church authority with regard to dogs, but The Orthodox told me that all dogs go to heaven, so.
So before, because you're going to eventually go to writing, what are you doing as, I guess what I'm asking is, help me understand what you're writing about and what's your motivation, if that makes any sense. What are you trying to do?
Well, it doesn't work if my eyes. I'm sorry, McMo thinks he knows everything. So what am I writing about? I'm writing about how people form communities in person and online, but today definitely online. For the love of God. Okay, I'm gonna stop looking at the comments.
I can't see him.
Because I'm fully devoted to this conversation here with Ron.
It's a group chat. It's a mosh pit.
So I'm writing about how people form communities, and I actually, full disclosure, I'm not really writing. I just have this giant PowerPoint that I'm putting together in case my advisor asks me any questions.
Good. Okay. I like it. Okay. It's a grift.
Yesterday, yeah, it's all a grift. And so I'm putting together a giant, and I had this really, okay, so yesterday I was reading, and I found this theory that was recommended to me probably like a year ago, who knows, and it maps on so perfectly to this little corner of the internet. And I was like, so it took me a longer time than usual to read it because I was making so many notes about like, okay, so here's how the corner fits. This is what this means for the corner. This is how this makes sense of the other theories that I'm already working with. And so that's probably what I'm actually going to be doing today, is like changing the theoretical orientation of my third chapter. But did any of that make sense? Because I feel like I just told you that I wrote a paper that.
Well, it's explain it to me like I'm a landscape worker.
Okay.
That hangs around smart people, and I'm just like, what motivated you to get into this? Not just sociology, but just this area. And you're well informed, like you're really well informed. So, like, you obviously enjoy something about all this, religion, God, whatever.
Oh, okay. You said that, and I wasn't thinking about God until you were like, oh, you. I'm sorry, I'm focused. Because I was thinking, like, the first thing I was going to say was like, and I was going to like sort of run this theory by you. Was like, okay, so there's this idea out there that, you know, everything's becoming more polarized. You've seen this, you know, social media is part of that. I do like you all. So I wonder, and I really wonder, this is a genuine question, is the stuff that's happening in this little corner of the internet, is that, are the things that happen there, are they maybe moderating political forces? Are they antidotes to this political polarization? So I think I found one or two things out there that might suggest maybe this is it. This is really a good case for that. What do you think about that, Ron?
This is a good case?
Yeah, you know, like everything's polarized and we don't want things to be so polarized anymore. Maybe there's stuff happening here that makes it less
to be honest, all right, listen, I'll give you something that's in real time. I just had to send in my family, one of my family members asked me last Sunday how I voted. We were at a Bob Evans, and I told him, and they had a full-on meltdown. And this is someone who is, oh yeah, it was, and it was interesting. In the past, I wouldn't have had a grid on how to have dealt with it. But because I talked with you, Mark Parker, and some other people on the left, I had more information and maybe some understanding. And so when my sister melted down, and it was bad. It was, I didn't react, and I got quiet,
Mm.
And then it's been since Sunday, and I haven't really slept well. The first thing I did, well, anyhow, I sent her a text or a voicemail. I didn't just say a text. I just said, listen, that hurt my feelings. I'm not going to change, and you're not going to change. But I understand, that's how you feel. And it was like empathizing without compromising for her and myself, to allow myself that space and learning how to not stop talking, or at least trying, learning how to keep the conversation, the dialogue going in some way.
TLC will teach you that. Let me tell you.
Yeah. It's opponent processing in good faith.
And your sister is the opponent there?
Dude, she would have been the executioner if she had a chance. She did not like the way I voted. And she made me. Huh?
Well, I just want to, what's your relationship with your sister like otherwise, like besides politics?
It has been slow growth. To the first formative years for all of us were a little rough, and we all went our own ways. And I've made an effort to try to slow growth. So this is a serious test. Here we are. And this is a test. This is live fire. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully good.
Yeah. Is she your older sister?
Yeah. 2 older sisters.
Yeah.
So, and they're very well. Okay, this is one of them. They had 2 sisters. They each have a child married to their same significant other of the same sex. Actually, the second one's going to get married. So one's married, and I get along with them, but I am the black sheep of the family.
Sisters are married to people of the same sex, or
Their children. One in their they have children, and one in each pile has got a child that has a same sex relationship, and it hasn't been a point of contention, but the election was just a flashpoint where I think it was like hell had been released against her and her kids. And I was on the side of the Nazis. And it was my fault. So.
Yeah.
But, good.
No, I just want to say that's hard. Like, that's hard to be in the conversation. And I like that, where you're like sort of the target of like I was wondering, like, what about like talking to Mark, that what happened with, I've been called a Nazi recently. I won't tell anyone where.
Can we be Nazis together? That would be, just flip them all out.
I don't think that would be acceptable.
I know it's anybody. Anyhow, what happened?
Well, I was going to ask you, Ron, if it's okay. I was going to ask you. Oh yeah. What was it about talking to Mark that you said it had a thing like just?
Well, yeah. With Mark, it was fun because he's left wing. Like he voted for Kamala Harris online. Like he punched his ticket, and he was having fun with it. And I'm like, well, Mark, I'm voting for Trump, and blah 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 blah. And we both presented our sides, and we didn't blow up at it. It was like I had to listen. I'm like, why? Why do you think that? And talking with you about women's health.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I don't have a lot of women friends, and let alone talk to them about women's issues. nothing, not opposed to it, or having a liberal friend, which I value to hear. It's like, get me out of my echo chamber. Okay, what am I missing? Fine, let's go. And that's what helped. Just having live conversations with people outside of my tribe.
Yeah. I thought I had some of the same thoughts. Honestly, before the election, I was talking to some people here, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know how many people in my like day-to-day life. Like, I mean, I have a few sort of friends who I see occasionally who, you know, are different from me, and like, you know, definitely all my family like votes differently than me. But yeah, there really was something about that.
About having friends you can talk with that are
Well,
from the other side.
talking to people
of the
online and really sort of getting an idea about like, well, why are people voting, you know, however they're voting? Because
right.
you know, the exit, like the exit polls might be the only accurate way of understanding
Okay.
voting right now, because it's like people really don't talk about it, especially with anybody who they think is different from them.
Right. Maybe that's what's the most dangerous. It's honestly, I think. Here's the thing: if Kennedy would have, if you had given me a chance to vote for Kennedy, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But that, you know, that didn't happen. And so maybe if this environment can help, to be honest, I think it's reasonable people on both sides. It's more of, it's not the fringe, it's not the Antifa or the Proud Boys that are going to be here.
Mm.
It's going to be someone who's willing to go, okay, I don't agree with you, change my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's about changing your mind.
Listening. Going back to the long footnote, it is the transformation. I'm all about transformation of heart.
Mm.
And it comes through, I think, dialogue quite a bit. You know, if you think someone doesn't know, and you think you do, try to teach them, or at least share your viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that helps. That helps as I'm sort of thinking about like going back to writing and stuff.
So, like, I guess I'm just at, how did you wind up as a sociologist interested in religion? Oh, you said because you think this might be part of the solution, right?
I really do, and that's kind of a secret, so don't tell anyone.
Okay, you're right. Got it. Okay.
Kind of an idea I'm thinking with, you know.
How? I mean, I think it's just good. You know, it's like, how can it possibly be the solution? I'm asking because I probably would agree with you, but I want to understand, like, what's motive. You know, so you're looking to make peace, or at least maybe present a way of peace.
Sort of, I wonder if peace is possible. Mark S is here. Should we see what he's got to say too?
Dude, oh, Mark.
Hey, Mark. I don't know if we've met before.
Hello. Yeah, just not from outside the comments. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to jump in for a second. I don't have much to say. I just wanted to jump in for the heck of it. But, you know, it just kind of occurred to me, you know, being on the internet, having to be a contrarian like everybody. You know, there's so much talk about, like, we need to hear different points of views. We need to hear different perspectives and try to understand the other and all these things, which, okay, it sounds really nice, but maybe not. Maybe that's what's wrong with everything, is that we have access to different points of view. Maybe we're not supposed to have different points of view. Maybe we're all supposed to believe the same thing, and that's the natural way we're supposed to be. You know, like in the old times, people want to go back to when things were tranquil and more community-based. Well, communities like believed the same thing. You know, they had the same religion, they had the same mythology, and they had the, you know, it's like there wasn't all this like individualistic choice of, you know, being, you know, doing what suits you. You had like one choice. I don't know. I just maybe that's the problem, is we have too much access to other points of views. Because I know it drives me a little schizophrenic sometimes.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know.
No.
I mean,
That's good.
I don't know if I don't necessarily believe that. I'm just throwing it out there, you know. Like I'm just kind of, I don't know. It just kind of hit me like we're taught to be open-minded so much. Like maybe we shouldn't be. Maybe, you know, because people who are very staunch in their views and very like fundamentalistic, a lot of the time they do really well in life. You know, if they just like don't budge from their beliefs. So anyway, yeah, I didn't mean to take it in a different direction, but I was on my break at work and I just wanted to have something to say, so that's what I said.
It's nice to meet you, Mark, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it is like, I don't know what Ron thinks about this, but I'm thinking, well, that's a good point. I mean, that's a good point there, and I'm kind of thinking, well, what are the consequences? Like, if everybody believes the same thing, like, what are the consequences? Like, would that lead to some kind of authoritarianism, and like, would that be a bad thing?
Right.
That's just sort of what comes to mind first. I think it's a question of like values. It's like, do we value truth? Do we value structure? Do we value yeah, I don't know what either of you would say to that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even yeah, like you said, would that lead to authoritarianism, and is that a bad thing? Like, I think that's a better question of like, is the people who are like trying to make us afraid of authoritarianism the authorities themselves? You know, I think we always kind of like live in some type of authoritarianism, and it's like, that's like everybody in America is just a counterculture now. Everybody thinks they're the rebel. Like there's nobody that thinks that they're the mainstream. You know, everybody just thinks that they're the anti-authoritarian freedom fighters, and when it actually like who is claiming that there's an institution to maintain? Everybody thinks they're trying to tear it down. And I almost feel like that's like an authoritarian ploy to like get us to believe we're anti-authoritarian, you know. So yeah, like I think there are authors, you know. I think we do live in authoritarianism right now. So
Sure. And you're describing that as everybody sort of succumbing to this power of thinking that they are, you know, throwing down the institution, that they have their own culture and their own way, their own whatever. Am I understanding you right?
well, yeah, it's almost like the culture of America is to be in a counterculture. Like whether you're you know, a leftist, you think that you're part of the resistance, right? If you're like an online alt-right person, you think that you're a rebel. You know, it's like all these different things. Like who claims in America to be a defender of an institution? Everybody seems to be trying to fight like speak truth to power. So what is the power? Like, you know, who is the power that's saying we need to maintain the power? At least in like a Catholic monarchy, you have the Pope who is like, no, I'm the power, and they're claiming that. You know, like, well, I have an institution. At least you have a definite power. But who, like, I don't know. I get kind of nervous on these things. I don't do this very often, so it's kind of tough for me to express myself. Yeah, it's just everybody. There is no like the mainstream culture is to be countercultural in America, and that doesn't just go for like hippies and like punk rock or whatever. I mean, that's even like Christians and just mainstream people. We all think that we're like fighting the evil big guy. You know, like we all think that we're representing the underdog. Everybody on every side, you know, thinks, and
That's true.
I don't know. It's like, and there is no, like, what are we pointing at as this thing that we're fighting? What, because as we point at the top, always it's like this nebulous, just elite, like, financial structure that you can't really pinpoint anybody. So it's like set up to where there's like, is it the CIA? Is it the government? Is it corporations? Is it like NATO? Is it, is it MAGA? Or it's like nothing. All of these things kind of crumble once you try to grab onto them. It's all, and so it's like everybody gets their own enemy. In America, you get your own enemy to like post about and fight and rebel against, and it's just like it's your chosen counterculture, basically. So, but none of us are able to really fight any of these things because they're all smokescreens. Well, I don't know if they all are. They're all real, but none of them are really the power. The power is just like, I don't know that much about economics, but it seems to be just this kind of ungraspable elite, like elite socialism, where it's like there's all these rents and all of these insurances that just get circulated at the top, and everybody's blaming everybody else for this, but this is just like the way that like American capitalism is developed. And so everybody, it's like, since there's not one person there, everybody can just blame everybody else for it, when it's like, who is this power? And then to get weird, like I heard, people talk about that verse where Paul says we fight not against flesh and blood, but against like archons and powers. And I heard this one interpretation of that where the guy said, it's kind of a materialist interpretation where, it's like we're not fighting against people, we're fighting against these systems that have just got out of control. And I mean, I personally do believe in like literal demons and angels. However, I think there's some truth to this, that it's like, we think that we're going to like vote something good in, or we know like, oh, Kamala's the enemy, or God is the enemy. But it's like these systems, they're just like, they're inhuman, like they're built to, they've been developed to like not really benefit people, and so they just like keep feeding off of us and off of our negativity and everything. And I think there's something to that. But anyway, I'm just hopefully I made a little bit of sense.
Yeah. The only question I have for you, sort of off the cuff, if you've got a minute to answer, is, and maybe Ron has something to say too, but how does authoritarianism, how does like a particular highly structured society or everybody thinking the same way, how does that help this problem?
Well, I mean, I know this is like very unpopular, but look at China. Okay, China. I tried to go to a church for a while, and I had to leave because they were always bashing China in the church. And it's like, what has China done? Like, China decided, like in the Deng Xiaoping, he decided to open it up to American business. So we start sending all of our business, all of our manufacturing to China. And of course, now we blame China for it, like they're this evil entity. And China, so yeah, they're a communist authoritarian nation. But they have a goal to bring up the people. And so we'll say, well, they don't actually do that. Look at all the people that have died. Yes, absolutely true. But they have a goal to bring up the people. And China is thriving. Everybody kind of knows that China is going to be taking power here probably in the next century sometime, if they officially already haven't. And, the standard of living in China is going up exponentially. And so in that way, a type of authoritarianism is benefiting China, So, I mean, I'm not saying we should be like China, but it would be, I don't know, it would be kind of nice to say, like, we're going to do something for the people, rather than like, oh, we're just going to have these tax cuts, or we're going to fight free speech, or just like these things don't really mean anything. We're like, we're going to drain the swamp. It's like all of these just sort of empty ideals. Why don't we just like actually take authority and do something for people, you know? And I'm not even talking in an egalitarian way of like, oh, we need to help the poor. I'm just talking about, what about me? Give me something, you know? And I'm not in a selfish way, but it's like, you know, I gotta be honest about, like, I'm tired of being like giving all of my time and money to this garbage, you know. It would be nice for, and I think Trump actually kind of got into that, like, we're going to actually do something, but I don't know if he's going to actually do that, because he didn't really do very much the first time. But so I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm a Christian, so I believe that, like, all of these earthly power structures are flawed, and the only good government is the kingdom of heaven. But I still would like some good stuff to come out of. You know, I think we've had good governments in the past, and but I just kind of am like, yeah, I don't even remember where I started. I have a bad short-term memory, so sometimes I forget about what I was talking about at the beginning of the sentence. So.
Oh, me too. I think you really answered the question for me, and I appreciate that. Sort of, you know, China is an example of a state that kind of has some of the things that's working for the people in a way you'd like the U.S. to. So,
I mean, I've never been there, you know, but the amount of anti-China propaganda that we get from people that I don't trust kind of makes me open to maybe they're doing something right. And then also when I do hear stuff from pro-China people, it's like, it sounds like they're doing some really good and interesting things. And I mean, this is like probably blasphemy to this corner, but it's like, I mean, I don't really know any other reasons when somebody's like, oh, we need to watch out for China, and you ask them why. Like, why? Well, they stole all our jobs. Did they steal our jobs, or did our elites sell us out to China? I think it's the latter. You know, like, they didn't steal anything from us, you know. But, they interfere in our elections. How would we know that unless we're interfering with their intelligence? You know, like, I don't, it's just like this. It's a smokescreen. Like, people just won't admit that our country, that their leaders that they want, that they like, are the corrupt ones, you know. And I can't stomach the I don't know, that this time it's going to be good, you know, or like, I don't know. So anyway, I would like, have you ever done a rando, Claire? Because every time I see something with you, it's like you just end up asking all these questions to people.
Yeah, I'm studying the corner. So it's kind of my job right now to ask questions of people. So
right.
That's a correct observation, Mark.
But have you ever got interviewed yourself and told your whole story and everything?
Yeah, I've sort of low-key thought about maybe having a conversation with Chad, but he's having a baby, so I don't know if there's going to be time. But
because I was watching some of your conversation with Chad the other day, and it was just Chad talking about himself again.
That was great. Chad is such a good person to talk to.
Absolutely, Chad is the guy that got me into all this. So
I saw your rando on Chad's channel.
But anyway, I'm going to get going here because I'm at work, and but thanks for letting me talk for a second. I'll probably keep listening.
Thanks, Mark. Have a good work day.
Thanks. You guys have a great one.
See you, Mark.
Okay. Well, Ron, we're gonna have to ask you what you think about what
That one blew my mind. China, not such a bad guy after all.
Wait, what?
Well, and I'm goofing. I met a guy from China who he walked from South America to get to Indiana.
Oh my God. Can you
Yeah.
do that? Can you cross? Is there a place you can't cross?
Well, he, and he came to a church that I was at during a worship evening, and I was listening to him, and he was a nice guy, and he didn't speak too much English. And then he pulled out an Apple phone, and he showed me pictures of the jungle where he was at, and it was so weird. Like, so my question is, if China is so great, why aren't people walking across large tracts of land, risking their lives to get there? Um, you know, I'm not a, I don't know how to answer this correctly.
Mm.
If my dad, he was incredibly sarcastic. He goes, he would probably say, the world's a mess, but we have the best mess. If you can find one better, have at it. But I think Grimm uses the word, I've learned kayfabe, like faking it, like live action role playing. I
Yeah.
would rather, pardon? Yeah.
I was agreeing with you, like this LARPing thing.
Yeah. So I would rather LARP America than Russia. Like I've had family friends that came from Poland because of a dictatorial regime was trying to kill them. It was called the Nazis. If you want someone who's organized, go with the Germans. Like they'll get it like clockwork. But eventually, what's the end game of the dictatorship? Will it wind up eating the people? Do people become a product that,
Yeah.
and I like what Mark S. had to say, and I saw some of the comments. But the reason I want people to keep talking and
Yeah.
is that, well, because I'm going to tie something in. I don't know if it's going to make sense.
Sure.
When I was a little kid, I met an old timer, and he said his grandfather's grandfather knew Native Americans in the Lake Erie area. And the story goes that you could see to the bottom of Lake Erie, and there were schools of fish that would cover the bottom. And it was weird as a kid. It was like hearing the echo of the past and like of ancient history. And I thought, man, that's so cool. And the reason I'm mentioning it is the Native Americans fought amongst themselves savagely.
Mm-hmm.
And then they learned to make peace. And with what's going on, I see things like getting tribal. It's so if you don't learn to talk, eventually the first person who stops talking, that's usually when violence is around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing is for talking is to prevent violence. Just even if you're yelling at each other or cussing at each other, whatever, maybe something can work out. But when you stop talking, usually the guns come out or, just something. And so that's my two comments. Like one, yes, let's say America is a oligarchy at this point. It's the rich folk and us.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Okay, so what if it is? And maybe it is already. Is it still better than other places? Is that being, and I don't mind the pushback on this, but if you have a dictatorial regime, whether it's communist or fascist. Mark S. said he believed in God. And I know that, and I do too. If you have somebody in charge who has total power, I think you're going to have a problem eventually. Someone's going to, it's going to be Saddam Hussein or someone else who does what they want, when they want, and how they want. And you might be on the receiving end of something that's horrific. So that's why I like broken tribes, not the broken tribes that can work together.
Yeah. Okay, Ron, I think that's really interesting, kind of what you're saying, and sort of, not necessarily sort of like, because like some of the things that Ron was saying was like, well, I thought I heard him say we were talking about like the product thing, and I wonder if Mark feels, kind of like he's the product, sort of, enriching rich people in our, you called it an oligarchy.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hi, Sherry.
Sherry.
I'm not turning my camera on because it's too early in the morning here.
Okay. For a second, I was like, I let Sherry in without.
I just wanted to tell a little story because I'm listening to this conversation, and and this is the story that comes to my mind. Yesterday, I went for a long hike on the property, on our property, and there's been a cascade of events over the last 10 years, let's say, actually even longer, 14 years, of forest fire, logging, and we could try to drill down to the reasons for both of those things. If the fire was natural, if it was climate change, if it was greed, if it was poor forest management. The logging, in my opinion, was definitely greed. But what happened was water started filling up in a low spot on our property, and what once was a meadow became a lake. But one of the consequences of that was that a lot of things died in the process. So there were a lot of trees around the edge of the meadow that are now standing dead in the water. But not only that, there are some really old, like 350-year-old Douglas firs, old growth. It's all, the whole area that I walked through is actually designated old growth. And those trees, because of the amount of water coming down that hill now, those trees died, right? And so, I'm walking through this one. It was once just a, super awe-inspiring place because the trees were so huge. The forest was old. And when these massive Douglas firs come down, they take out a lot of other trees at the same time. And you end up standing in front of this huge, nasty mess, right? And thinking, how am I going to get over this? Now I'm going to have to walk all the way around, and the tree's like, 100, 150 meters long. So it's like, and I stood there for a while, and I looked a little harder at the whole thing. And I thought, this is really what life is like, isn't it? It looks like such a mess, but what's actually happened is it's let a whole bunch of light in, right? And now the forest is going to become something else, something that has been before, actually, because everything starts somewhere, right? It doesn't just pop into existence as is. Everything has a beginning and everything has an end. Mm-hmm. And that's what apocalypse is. That's what Revelation is. So that's all I wanted to say. I popped in just to say that.
Sure, I always love your stories, whether you're like reading them or whether you're telling them. It's like so much wisdom there.
Yeah. You know, I listened to a conversation with Jim Morrison yesterday. It was an interview that he did on CBC Radio, actually.
Okay.
And I recommend, I put the link in Grail Country, in the server in Grail Country, if anybody's interested in listening to it. It was amazing. I think you would really enjoy it, Clara, actually.
Wait, am I agreeing to watch something? I'm sorry. Where is?
No, you don't have to watch it, but I think it would interest you, because he makes some very interesting remarks and observations. But one of the takeaways I got from that was that well, it was basically the Chinese farmer story, because at certain points in the interview, he would say things like, "I think it's a good thing," but now we're how many years down the road? It was an interview in 1970. So what is that? 50 years later? I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you would agree that, as a sociologist, that we really don't know the ripple effects. Like, human beings are such wild cards, right? Like you almost invariably are going to make the wrong prediction when it comes to human behavior.
Every now and then, right?
You know, it's just like, what? How did that go so wrong?
Yeah.
Or how did that go so right?
Yeah.
You know, like those are both miraculous in a way, which probably gives us a sense of the transcendent, right? Because we really don't feel like we're in control.
Yeah, or we do feel like we're in control and we're wrong, right? So either way.
Yeah, and that's why we tend to lean towards something greater than ourselves. Yeah.
Sure. I wanted to also give Ron a chance to.
Yeah, Ron, where did you go?
Like, I felt like
Get back in here.
Had a response. I just wanted to make sure he, because we were talking about politics, and I know it can get touchy, but I really do have to. Well played, Clara. I don't even know what's happening in the chat, Sherry. I'm sorry, I got distracted. PVK decided to come in, and Ron both. Did you have anything else to say, Sherry, before we let the men in?
No, I'm good. And let the men in. Let them in.
Okay.
Can't believe you left us men out here in the waiting room. So it's becoming a pattern.
Mark Parker made this into a verb. He called it being nakamad.
I didn't say that. Let the record show. Nakama, if you would like to be interviewed by me, I'm still a safe person.
And of all people, Mark D. Parker, our local liberal, makes this, who's always worried about the women. He's, now he's poor. He's memed poor Nakama. How much more can that poor woman take?
Women aren't just poor creatures subjected to whatever.
Wait.
It's Sartori without the beard.
Sartori without the beard.
You never know.
I do like the glasses and the mic ride. I mean, she's just sitting here, and it's kind of John Lennon-ish, imagine there's no PhD. I can live stream all day, make my new friends.
You sound very cynical,
for the
Paul.
advisor.
If it works, it works. This is the vibe.
I just wanted to make sure that the live stream didn't die. I can't stay real long. I got to get ready for my own live stream. But so what is? I didn't catch the whole Halakhic Man footnote 4. I saw you streamed on that, and that was the title for this stream too, right?
Yep, that's the stream.
All right. Did we get a little far afield?
A little bit, but at the same time, kind of in the same zone.
Oh.
I didn't get to listen to that reading. I want to go back and listen to it because I've heard Jacob refer to it many times, and I think it was Sandy that told you to read that, Clara. And so I'm actually quite interested in what that footnote says. So I will go back and read that or listen.
It's a very long footnote.
Yeah, listen to your beautiful reading. I started it, but then I had to go to town yesterday. So
Yeah, it's there's a lot of theology and history and stuff interwoven into what some people might describe as an angry rant.
Good. I love those.
Sherry, how long does it take you to get to town?
45 minutes. And it's the most scenic drive ever, and there's no one on the highway. Hardly
That
anyone.
sounds
Deer.
beautiful.
Mostly deer. But I don't have any, I mean, there's no Wi-Fi on our highway, but I don't have a cell phone either. So I can't take all the live streams with me in the car like other people. I just have to cut myself off and do something wholly other. I want to go to town, which is kind of good. It's good.
I still can't get over the idea that maybe it's your sister that's talking to us and she's sneaking into the corner, keeping the camera off. And
no.
It is crazy how you and your sister have the same voice. It is absolutely insane.
Yeah, and it's actually almost all the females in the family, like her kids and her daughters and my daughters. We all sound like each other. It's weird. It's weird. She phoned me. I don't know. I got to tell this story, Paul. You'll love it. She phoned me once in Switzerland, and it was in the middle of the day. It was very late at night for her, or early morning or something. So it was totally unexpected. And we didn't actually make that many phone calls to each other because it was super expensive at the time. It was like $4 a minute to talk. So it was letter writing days, right? Anyway, I picked up the phone and I heard this voice on the other end. And it was an English speaking voice and it sounded exactly like me, right? And I'm like, and I answered in the typical Swiss fashion, saying the last name first. And then she's like, Sherry, it's me. And I'm like, who is this? She's like, it's me. And I'm like, she goes, me, Tracy. And I said, oh my God, I thought it was me. She loves telling that story.
That's a great story. All right. The live stream is still up. So my mission is done here. I have things to do. And just carry on, Clara. You're doing a great job.
Good to see you.
Claire's awesome.
Can we all show up for your PhD defense? Would that be cool? I think we should.
It's still a year away, Paul, so don't worry about it.
Buy those plane tickets early.
Let's see if I can wind it up with the Midwestuary event. Tell my advisor to come to Chicago. I'm sure it'll work.
Definitely. Is your advisor Roman Catholic?
Well, believe it or not, even at Notre Dame, we don't really discuss religion very much, Paul. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to interrogate my advisor the way I interrogate y'all.
Oh, now I feel like a lab rat.
You're not a lab rat because you consented to this, and lab rats can't consent.
There you go.
Boy, that sure sounds like some authoritarian propaganda to me.
Okay.
I'm calling Grim Grizz right now.
Rod, I promised you the last word, I think, and What?
This was fun.
This was fun.
Yeah, I think this can stop wars. This
What?
is how you stop wars. Just start one.
Ron, I just want to say I just enjoyed so much listening to you this morning. It was so good.
Oh, thanks. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, really. Loved it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So weird getting a compliment. You're like, huh? Okay, thanks. But no, I appreciate that quite a bit. Thanks. And that was the first time I was next to Paul for a moment. I felt it.
Oh,
Just still catching the residue of the anointing there.
Wait, what is this? Was this on this live stream? Was this somewhere else this morning?
Well, no, I've talked to him in quick passing, but that was just my brush with greatness.
You right did, and I missed it. I was asleep at the wheel.
No. It was perfect. It was good. It was, and then Grimm's been in the comments. He said he felt icky sometimes when he was clipping. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And why are you?
Can I give a what I think that means?
Yeah.
I think it means context matters. Right.
Huh.
And so when you clip things, you can really distort what the truth of the thing is that the person's talking about. You can distort that quite a bit. So yeah, that's what I think, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what Grim meant. Meaning is difficult to decipher, especially in a text chat.
Right. Yeah, really. No doubt. Travel mercies to you, Sherry. There and back.
Travel mercies?
Travel mercies on the road.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the best drive in the world. I have no traffic jams, nothing. I can speed or I can drive as slow as I want. Sometimes I do both. Depends on when I'm supposed to be in town, if I have an appointment that I'm late for. But generally speaking, I drive under the speed limit because I'm an enjoyer of things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good deal.
That's
Hug a tree for me.
What's that? Hug a tree for you?
Hug a tree for me.
Yeah, I mourned with one who was dying. Yeah.
Oh.
Yesterday.
All right. Well, if it's, and I've not prayed for a tree yet. I prayed for a dog today on Clara's live stream.
I saw that and I loved it.
That's so, and I mean it. Like I'm not. I do. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm not goofing, but I've never prayed for a. Huh?
Well, I pray. I've prayed many times for animals.
Okay.
And lay hands on my animals when I pray for them. And there's a beautiful little saying. Well, it's kind of like I guess you might call it like a nursery rhyme in Swiss. And it goes, Heila, Heila Saga. Heila means to heal something, and a sagan is a blessing. So, and you say this to children who are sick, when your children are sick in bed. You say, Heila, Heila Saga, 3 dag raga, which is 3 days of rain. 3 dag raga, 3 dag schnee, 3 days of snow. Jetzt doets am Clara nummer we. And that last line is now. The literal translation sounds weird, but now it doesn't hurt Clara anymore. So it's basically healing, blessing, 3 days of rain, 3 days of snow, and now it doesn't hurt you anymore, right? Which, honestly, if you've had small children that get sick, usually by day 3 they're on the mend, right? But I often, with sick animals, I put my hands on them and say, Heila, Heila Saga. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's a nice short one. You can remember. It's easy.
I'll keep that one for English for me. Otherwise, I'll be like, haggis, healing.
Healing, blessing. Healing, blessing. That's what it is. Heila Saga.
All right.
in college who spoke Swiss German, Jerry, and they were studying to become nursery school teachers, and so or teachers of young grades, young children. And you just remind me of them because they would sing songs like this. There's a song about a stone passing the stone.
Yeah, I know, they have the craziest, most interesting, like very, very attached to the earth, very observant of the cyclical nature of things. Like, yeah, it has a song. You want me to sing it? It's just short.
Yes. Bring me back.
Okay, here we go. Heila, heila saga, 3 dag rage, 3 dag Schnee, jetzt tut's am Klära nimmer weh.
Sherry? Well, that seems like a good note to end on. I really should get back to my writing.
There you go. We wrapped it up with this song.
See you guys. That was fun.
Bye, Ron. Bye, Clara.
Bye bye.